Hello, today we will review Chapter 2 of the IGCSE Biology syllabus, which is Organization of the Organisms. So we'll first start with cell structure and organization. So we will compare between an animal cell and a plant cell. So first, regardless of plant cell or an animal cell, you see this organelles, which I put in red boxes. So organelles are like subparts of a cell, and this red box indicates organelles that are present in most of the cell. So, as you see, we have this nucleus, which has a circular shape, and a cytoplasm, which is a space inside a cell, and a cell membrane, which is a border that encloses the cytoplasm. And we have this mitochondria, which have this wiggly shape. And we have rough endoplasmic reticulum next to the nucleus. And finally, we have the ribosomes. And we also have these organelles, which I put in the blue box. So organelles that I put in blue box are organelles that are only present in plant cell and not present in the animal cell. So plant cell has this extra layer outside the cell membrane, which is the cell wall. And it has a large vacuole in the center. And it also has another wiggly organelle, chloroplast. So if you were to distinguish between a plant cell and an animal cell, you can talk about how plant cells have cell wall, central vacuole, and a chloroplast, while animal cells don't. So now we will move on to functions of each of these organelles. So first, nucleus. Nucleus contains the genetic information, or the DNA. So DNA is like a set of manuals for the cell. So in other words, we can say that nucleus controls the cell. So you can write these two functions for a function of nucleus question. Next, cell membrane. Cell membrane controls the transport of materials in and out of the cell, and we'll look at that more detail in chapter 3. Cytoplasm is the medium for reactions in a cell. For example, if we were to say a lake is equal to a cell, the lake water would be a cytoplasm, a space where reactions happen. And we have the rough endoplasmic reticulum, rough ER, and ribosomes. Rough ER and ribosomes are both responsible for protein synthesis. So you don't have to know in detail about this in IGCSE, but to explain a little bit more, rough endoplasmic reticulum produces proteins which are to be used inside the cell. And ribosomes that are not in the rough ER but just floating randomly around the cytoplasm synthesize protein that were to be used outside the cell. And finally, we have the mitochondria, which is responsible for aerobic respiration or cellular respiration. You can call it either way. So just basically respiration is breaking down glucose to release energy, the ATP, which is used by cell for various purposes. So these are the main essential features that are present in almost every cell except the prokaryotic cell. So the E here stands for eukaryotic cell, including plant cell and animal cell, and P here stands for prokaryotic cell. So interestingly, prokaryotic cells don't have a nucleus, don't have rough ER, and also don't have mitochondria because their metabolism happens on their cell wall. But however, they have cell membranes, cytoplasm, and ribosome. So the question may ask you to differentiate between a eukaryotic cell or a prokaryotic cell, and you can always remember that prokaryotic cells don't have nucleus, no rough ER, and no mitochondria. And you also need to be able to identify this in a diagram or a picture of a cell. Now we will look at organelles that are present in the plant cells. So first, chloroplast. So chloroplasts are responsible for photosynthesis, which is synthesizing glucose molecules using carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight. And next, cells have this large vacuole. So large vacuole maintains the turgidity of the plant. What I mean by turgidity Actually, I'll explain this in more detail in chapter 3. And large vacuole I forgot to mention, but it also acts as a storage. And finally, cell wall. Cell wall gives plants its tensile strength and mechanical protection, but it also prevents cells from bursting and shrinking. And you will see why that happens in chapter 3. Okay, so continuing with the features of organism, you need to know major cells. So there are major cells which are in the syllabus, and I brought it here. The first cell you have to know are ciliated cells. So as you see in the image here, ciliated cells are the cells with hairs on it. So it's responsible for movement of mucus in the trachea or bronchi. So trachea and bronchi are airways in your connected to your lungs. We will look at that more in a later chapter where we discuss respiration. But anyway, in the line of trachea and bronchi, there are the ciliated cells which move mucus through its hairs. And next we have root hair cells which are responsible for absorption. As you see, this is an image of cells in the roots, and you see this root hair cell sticking out here. So root hair cells absorb water, minerals, ions that are used essentially by the plants. And next cell we have to know are xylem vessels. So xylem vessels itself is more like a tissue, but inside a tissue there are cells which constitute xylem vessels. And xylem vessels are responsible for conduction and support of water molecules for plants. So when root hair cells absorb these water molecules, it goes up the plants following this xylem vessel. And let's move on to more close look of the images. So these are the ciliated cells, and as you can see here, this is a one cell. And you can identify the nucleus here and the cell membrane, which is the borderline here. And you see this hair cells here. So if you were to identify a ciliated cell, you can always look for these hairs. And next, this is the closed look of root hair cells. So root hair cells, an easy way to identify root hair cells is look for these long elongated hairs, which are used to absorb nutrients for the plant. And you can see this dark black circles here, and I think they are nucleus. So xylem vessel is a vessel which transports water within the plant, and this is a cross section of the plant stem. And a good way to identify xylem vessel is always look at this hollow shapes, hollow holes. And so this is the phloem and this is the xylem, and the xylem is always located or inside compared to the phloem. So if you see this like in the cross section inner circle with this large holes in it, that is the xylem. We're not finished yet, and we also have to know about other cells too. So next cell is palisade mesophyll cells. Palisade mesophyll cells are the major cells that are responsible for photosynthesis. And as you can see here, these are palisade mesophyll cells. And the next cell we have to know are nerve cells. So nerve cells are responsible for conduction of impulses. Impulses are electrical signals within our body, which is responsible for triggering responses. And next cell we have to know is red blood cells. And a kind of scholastic way to call red blood cells are erythrocytes. You can show that to your teacher, but they will be surprised. But yeah, anyway. So red blood cells are responsible for transport of oxygen to cells. And this is the image of red blood cells. And final cells we have to know are sperm and egg cells, which are responsible for reproduction. So this is a close view of palisade mesophyll cells. As you see here, this here is the cell wall and the cell membrane, which is the border that encloses the cell. And you see a large hollow space here, right? So this large white space is the large vacuole, which is present only in the plant. And you see this large black circles here. Large black circles here are the chloroplasts, which are responsible for the actual photosynthesis. And I think this circle here is the nucleus, yeah. But the major features to identify a opaque mesophyll cell are the chloroplast and large vacuole. So nerve cells, so this is not a very good picture of nerve cell, but we will look at nerve cells more detail in chapter 14, I think. And a good way to identify a nerve cell is this long body shape here and a large like cobweb looking part, which is called dendrite. And I think this red part, red circle up right here is the nucleus. So you see how all these cells have nucleus, but red blood cells don't have nucleus. So red blood cells just have this hollow shape. And the reason why red blood cells have no nucleus is the major reason is to carry more oxygen to cells because the nucleus takes space. But an auxiliary reason could be that oxygen is kind of reactive, so we don't want these essential cells to undergo like mutation. So we don't have this DNA and the nucleus inside those red blood cells. Yeah, but the major reason is to carry more oxygen. And finally, we have the sperm cells and egg cell. So sperm cell uniquely has a flagellum, which is the tail here. And we'll look at characteristics of sperm cells more later, but sperm cells have many mitochondria because they have to move a lot. They have to travel a lot. And you see this egg cell here, so this kind of like a lot of circles are here, and these are the sperm cells trying to enter the egg cell. And egg cells, as you can see here, it has a very large shape compared to a sperm cell, and it has a nucleus in the middle. So we reviewed basic cells we have to know, and now we will move on to levels of organisms. So I brought this definitions from the syllabus, but we will see here. So in levels of organization, we have cell, a tissue or organ, and an organ system. So cell is the basic unit of life. An example would be neuron, we just looked at it. And tissue is a group of cells with similar structures working together to perform a shared function. So shared function here is an important keyword which words you'll mark when they ask for definition of tissue. So examples of tissue would be the xylem, the whole xylem vessel up to the plant, up to the leaf, or the muscles in our body. And next level we have organ, which is a structure made up of a group of tissues working together to perform specific functions. You have to be really careful with the wording here. So example would be heart, lungs, our pancreas, yeah. An organ system, a group of organs with related functions working together to perform body functions. So examples would be circulatory systems and digestive system or nervous system. So the brain, the spinal cords, our nerves, they all constitute a nervous system. So the size of level increases from cell to an organ system. Finally, we will cover size of specimens. So in here, we will learn how to calculate the magnification or the image size or actual size. So for calculating magnification, you must memorize this IM triangle pyramid here. So as you see, the image size is a multiplication of actual size and a magnification. And the actual size is quotient of image size and magnification. So as you see this line here and the positioning, so you can see this, you can think this as a fraction where image size is divided by magnification. And for the magnification, you can divide the image size by the actual size. So I wrote this manual. So when calculating or finding out the magnification, we first convert all the units to the smallest unit given. So what I mean by that is if they give image size in millimeters and if they give the actual size in micrometers, it's always a good idea to convert all units to the same unit and even the smallest one. So you can change the, so if, for example, if the image size is 1 millimeter, we can convert that to 1000 micrometer for easy calculations. And we draw the IAM pyramid. A good way to remember the position is I on the top and M on the middle. In the bottom, sorry. And identify what you're calculating and write the formula for it. So if you were to calculate the magnification, you can write magnification equals image size divided by actual size. And if you were to calculate actual size, you can write image size divided by the magnification. And if you were to calculate the image size, you can multiply the magnification and the actual size. Sorry for the confusion. And you substitute the known value in the formula to calculate the answer. So I will post an example of this later, but basically we covered all contents of the chapter 2 of our biology syllabus. Thank you.